Got it. The next game, and this is an undefeated team that I would say has flown considerably under the radar. Harvard, and the reason I would say they've flown under the radar is if we look at their first five wins, Providence, Bryant, Bucknell, Merrimack, Vermont, with 1 goal wins over Bryant and Bucknell, and a 3 goal win over Vermont. So while they are undefeated, I wouldn't say that they had kind of like this statement victory. They haven't really been on the map because of those close games, and it would be easy to create a narrative in which you just attribute that 5-0 start to their schedule. And I think a lot of people expected Michigan either to be their first loss or to kind of see if they can rise to the challenge. Well, what did they do? They absolutely rose to the challenge, went into Ann Arbor and won 13-11. And I think this is the one that kind of puts Harvard on the map, and they go, okay, yeah, Harvard's been undefeated, but now they've beat Michigan. Shocker, Jerry Burns' defense is good and held Michigan to 2 goals in the first half. They went up 4-0, then it was 7-2, 10-3. So this was kind of Harvard jumping out and dominating from the start. The Wolverines clawed their way back. It was 12-9, but really I don't think there was ever that we really got to dial it in. We really have to be careful here with the 2 goal, 3 goal buffer right up until the very end. Sam King for Harvard is an absolute stud. I watched their game against Merrimack because my girlfriend's brother plays there, that tough game for Merrimack. But what impressed me was kind of like not only Sam King on Harvard, but a lot of their offensive distribution. They have weapons all over the place. And in addition to Jerry Burns' defense, which only improves year after year, I think this gives Harvard a little bit of momentum, just like we were talking about with Yale going into next week's matchup. Freshman Jackson Green, who's been not silent, but he kind of had a bit of a breakout game, having his first 2 goal game of the season, throwing an assist in. But 10 offensive players scored for Harvard. So it was cool to see that, yeah, they have weapons all over the field, but even if Sam King, who had 2 goals and 2 assists, is cut off, they're a well-balanced, well-distributed, credit to Neil Hutchinson, fun offense to watch. Logan Ipps dynamic, Sam King, you got freshmen. For Michigan, Christian Ronda had 4-1, but Harvard played wicked good, Terry.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. First of all, incredible breakdown by you. Wow. Second
Thank
of
you.
all, when I was watching this game in real time and saw Michigan jump out to that lead, I couldn't help but think
Harvard
about the
jumped out to
fact.
that lead.
Sorry, correct. I couldn't help but think about the fact that Harvard led 9-3 last year, and Michigan came back and won that game 19-13, and it was kind of the launching pad, I think, in some respects. The actual like verification, so to speak, of what Michigan could be and turned into as the season went on. Even then, that Maryland game in I believe late March, early April ended up giving way to a loss at Rutgers in the regular season. So I guess my point is that that game, particularly because this is now a couple years in a row that it's not as if it was only a 2-game series, right? They played 3 years ago as well, and if memory serves, this Michigan started I believe 7-0 in 22, and then their loss to Harvard gave way to an 8-game losing streak, and they ended up finishing the season 7-8. And so as a result, my point is that this is a series that has meant a lot to these two teams, and I think you're right, to frame it around verification of who Harvard either is or might be as this season goes along. And I think that the reaction to, this Harvard team through the first part of the season was exactly how good they were offensively. And I think that if there is a theme to the first, 20 minutes of this conversation, it is that the best offenses right now are very multiple, very diverse, hard to prepare for because of the variety of weapons that you have to game plan for. It's exactly what you were just talking about. And Harvard is no different. To the extent that they might be, it is because of where you started your analysis of Harvard, which is Sam King. And what's interesting is, I don't think in my kind of conception of offense and players and all that sort of stuff, Sam King is not a traditional quarterback because he is pretty small and really fast and left-handed. And it's just that's not the makeup of like your typical like offense trigger guy. But at the same time, he is such a good distributor, and he is a really unselfish player in a lot of ways, that it's very clear to me, at least, that he's just a perfect kind of catalyst for this group. And what's different, I think, from last year to this year is, and it's kind of funny. The NBA always refers to itself as a make or miss league, and I think that can be a little bit reductive, and you don't want to be that reductive when it comes to analysis. But you look at, team over year performance from certain teams, and like, for instance, Syracuse, right? Finn Thompson has not shot nearly as well as he did last season. There's a lot of variables that go into that, and sometimes the difference between a great offense and a good offense, or a good offense and a mediocre offense, is one guy, shooting 22% when traditionally he shoots 35%. And so when I look at this Harvard group, it is important to note what you did, which is a lot of the not Jackson Green is the only freshman contributor or whatever. It's not just about the overall offensive contributors, but it is also about the role that having 8 guys that are going to come in on your top 2 midfield lines and your other 2 attackmen, and then have unique scouts for them, because they each know their role, they know how to execute it, and the defense has to be prepared for how those guys are going to execute the role. It's a tough task. It's a tough challenge, and I think that's why Harvard, for our numbers right now, are the number 3 team in number 3 offense in college lacrosse.
Yeah, and combine that with, and if anybody complains about dogs barking on this podcast, we'll slap you upside the head. Dogs are one of the best reasons. Credit to humanity for all of the animals out there to domesticate. We chose dogs and horses. Great job. Credit to us. But especially, like, even watching that Merrimack game, it's interesting to watch games with my girlfriend because she just thinks that Merrimack is playing bad. But as it relates to your point right there, the thing that would have the thing that impressed me most that I was watching, where I'm like, well, how do you stop this, is the unique ways in which Harvard can initiate, score, and get great looks from long approaches after like dodge, ball movement. You kind of slough into the defense, and then you approach out on the new initiator. And a good amount of their players can beat you both ways. They're initiating from spots on the field which they can go both ways and be dangerous in both ways. Even a college offense and even high-level Division I offense, you're like, oh, great, here we go. Here comes your classic dodge down the alley. And what Harvard does such a great job of is their dodges are going anywhere. Their skip passes are going to the back pipe, to the near pipe, to the crease, forward for the step down. And they had a great game man up on that game as well. And I think that's also a testament to just their ability to distribute the ball. And again, kind of piggybacking off another your point, to have so many initiators, so many guys who are attacking that late approach, to have so many offensive players, but none of them really playing selfish or kind of like overdoing it in their role. I was like, okay, anytime you start talking about a Jerry Byrne based team, it starts with defense. But I wasn't blown away by their defense. Sneaky, scary, and gives me a lot of weight. Like, I'm going to put a lot of weight into that Harvard-Yale game as what I think is going to happen for the rest of the season for each team.
100%. And I also think that, to the point that you made about Harvard's defense, and I've only been able to watch highlights of this game. So, I am interested in going back and watching the film, because you don't get a lot of what I'm about to talk about just through highlights. But, and hopefully we have an opportunity to ask him this question here in a second. What I am interested in, and this is kind of a legacy of his approach to coaching defense, and you played for it, so you know this a lot better than I do. But basically, like, how matchup conscious you are over the course of the week in terms of preparation, right? And your willingness or the kind of tendency to switch and be open to switching picks, and not being overly conscious about what a particular offensive player might do. And what's interesting about Michigan is that there is some similarities in terms of the hierarchy of their personnel to Harvard, insofar as, Michael Boehm is so important to them, and he has a lot of the same attributes as Sam King does. And so I can imagine a scenario in which Harvard's defensive personnel was a little bit more prepared to guard Mike Boehm because the player that they guard in practice every day has a lot of those similar physical attributes. So, like I said, hopefully we had an opportunity to ask him, and now we do. Jerry Byrne, thanks for joining the Tailgate podcast. How's it going, brother?
What's up? How you guys doing?
Hey,
We're doing
Coach.
great.
What's up, Nick? You've been doing some neck rolls? You're looking a little thick up there.
I've gotten back into the gym, and they're like, people will ask me, what am I doing in the gym? I know a couple things, and I'm getting back into the hang clean into front squat game, and people are like, you're 30 and fat and bald. Why are you doing that? And I go, well, because I don't know anything else. So, and you're looking great too, Coach.
Thank you, man. I'm trying to be as far away from the cell phone as possible.
Well, Terry, go ahead and kick it off with the question.
Well, so I think we'll start there. How do you describe that Michigan game in terms of the way that it unfolded? What were the important factors in the outcome? And then, I'll follow up with where I was leading prior to your joining.
I think there, as someone once said, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. But one of the things that's kind of a certainty is you got to get saves at critical moments, and you got to win some faceoffs at critical moments. So we got some saves in the first half and didn't do great on the in the faceoff game, and then it kind of flipped in the second half. But I think in general we were really efficient on offense. Neil Hutchinson, who is our offensive coordinator, and we've been together for 5 years now, just did an unbelievable job of kind of being really democratic offensively. And then defensively, Nick Grill, he and I kind of partner on defense, brought a lot of kind of his knowledge from, playing at Marquette in Maryland and in the PLL, and kind of helping me with picks, because Michigan is a really aggressive picking team, like militant about it. And I felt like we were really prepared there. So I think we consistently got them down to the last 15 seconds of a possession, which, when Nick was playing, that was like, we got him in the shot clock and no one wants to shoot. Now that's the scariest part of a possession. Desperate and guys willing to go all in. So it's really kind of the scariest part of a defensive possession. But I felt like we did really well there. And Barney, Andrew Barnard, Christian Barnard, Andrew was his dad, sorry. Christian had some great saves.
So one of the things that we were talking about prior to your joining was, for 15 years, you and I have spoken about how matchup conscious your defenses are, or probably better said, are not. But that has a different manifestation depending on how particularly oriented around one or two players an offense is, and particularly relative to how unique their athletic attributes are. And the point I was making is I wondered whether or not your defensive personnel was a little bit better prepared to take on Michigan, because Mike Boehm and Sam King have a fair amount of similarities in terms of their athletic attributes. How did you, and how do you, I guess, is your philosophy still as kind of, this might be a really dumb question, right? But are you still as kind of, do you feel similarly about, not caring about matchups, being, comfortable switching, especially in terms of what you talked about with Michigan's militant nature to the pick game? And then how did you approach number 5 for the Wolverines?
We don't have it on the scouting report. We don't go with ones against ones as much, just because of the way our season has unfolded. We played, 6 games in 20 days. So you didn't have as much time to do that kind of work where you might get ones against ones. But we have enough really good lefties on our team that can give us kind of the jabby, hop, split roll, hesitation game that Boehm plays. So, but I don't, we talk about who their better players are, but every team, to win really good games, your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th scorer has to make plays, either hockey assists or actual goals. And I think that was a contrasting story of this game. And we had, 9, 10, or 11 people who had points. And I think that was more than our opponent had. So, you can get the look of a guy in a variety of ways. And, Nick knows some of the things that we did in my previous life. And so, but it's less about, we got to stop this guy. I know some people approach the game that way, and it can work for you. But I think more holistically. I think Coach Carrill has done a good job of helping kind of me develop my understanding of how to play picks. So we try to play picks better and not work, and still be aware of whether we're switching or getting through. But if a switch happens, it happens. I got 99 problems, but a switch ain't one.
I'm so curious about that because I had this big moment of realization when I started playing professionally, which is about 99% matchup oriented. You even prepare for picks differently, which was difficult for me to make the adjustment to because I'm like, I don't care who we're playing. I'm playing burn method defense. So when you say that he helps you play picks differently, the moment of realization that I had was I was applying my mindset 3 or 4 years out of college retroactively to me, who was struggling to understand even the basics of defense, especially as a freshman, sophomore. When you say that he's helping you play picks a little bit differently or better, what have those adjustments been?
I think you look at the way Maryland historically has played picks, which I think comes from a little basketball mindset. Whether you're just stacking, like getting kind of the guy behind the guy. If you're stacking and whacking, kind of that's what I call it, kind of your one-handed fake slash, where evidently you can just hit a guy as hard as you want now, and it's not a slash, but that's a conversation for a different time. Or whether you kind of chase and kind of try to deter the guy, you chase after him and then chase back to force him kind of wide around a pick, So we had never done that, and so learning how to do that, and Ted Bergman, who was my old defensive assistant, we had started instituting that last year, and Nick helped us take it to a whole other level. And so it means you switch less, which means it makes it harder for them to get the matchups that they want, because Michigan is a very good team, very well coached, and they worked really hard for Cohen and Bain to get the ball. And if you can delay that and defer it with some good riding and some sub-game stuff, which they like to do. Next thing you know, they're potentially down to a 30-second functional possession. And now if you're playing picks better, it takes them longer to get their matchup. Now you have the potential to be down to 15 or 20 seconds. And, I think we're a pretty good defensive team. I think we can play defense for 15 to 20 seconds. So I think all of that kind of, the math of that can help you. But it's mostly around, are we stacking? Are we stacking and whacking? Are we chipping? Are we switching? Are we jump switching and double teaming? So I think we kind of showcased a variety of those things that we can do.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating to hear you talk about picks because I just remember, hey, guard your man as good as you can, work harder than the other guy off ball. Credit to Nick.
I think that worked much better in the pre-shot clock era, and if you're not evolving, you're dying. So I mean, old guy trying to learn new tricks.
That was going to be my other comment is, boy, do I wish we had that against those horrific DU games where they did the possession shots and had 7-minute possessions. But we're not going to unpack that here. Another question from me. So as we looked, and we were just talking about this, wins are not hard to come by at any point in the season. So you come into this game undefeated, and that could be arguably a function of schedule, a function of execution. Did this game, and I expect a bit of a coach speak answer, we don't care who we're playing, we're coming away with the victory, but did this game kind of solidify like, hey, we're undefeated and we have a marquee win under our belt, you better watch out for the Crimson this year, or was this just business as usual?
I think, often the media just has a narrative that, the easiest explanation is probably the one that we can go with. Like perception and how people see you, you can't, it affects you because we're all human. Anybody who says, oh, we don't look at the polls or we don't look at what people are saying are lying. It's hard to avoid it. It's hard to, because, whether it's, and I talked to the team about the text I'm getting from, both people who are supportive and people like, you guys haven't played anybody and we'll see what you're made. Like, you get it from all areas. And so if you accept the fact that you can't ignore it, then you just, you're not doing anything for them. So we played the schedule that we played. You don't always control how well maybe some of the teams on your schedule have evolved in their own things. And we've played some really good teams that pushed us to the limit, and I expect those teams to have really good years. But the flip of that argument is also true, meaning that legacy type programs, now not named, but you know, and again, it's reality is that a loss to a defeat of that team means a lot. A loss to that team doesn't hurt you as much. A team that doesn't maybe have a long legacy of success, but has been good in the past, you get some bump. If you haven't had consistent success and you beat one of those teams, you get a little bump up. So it's all part of the the ecosystem of this kind of stuff. And so, the coach speak answer is, this is who we're playing. I mean, we want to win just like we want to win next weekend as well.
Yeah, Terry, how about you stop with the bias of successful programs? I'm sick of it. Yeah. Good call out, Coach Byrne.
I said present company excluded.
So you pointed to we could talk all day, but we gotta be respectful for your time. And you pointed to next weekend, and it's really interesting because the Ivy League, after not doing so for like 60 years, reordered the schedule of regular season games, and now as opposed to ending your regular season with Harvard's rival Yale, you're opening Ivy League play with Harvard's rival Yale. The Bulldogs are coming off of a win over Denver in Denver, and so they've got to get back home, and then you'll square up in New Haven on Saturday. It's Monday. We don't do a ton of previewing, but have you gotten an opportunity to get eyes on the Bulldogs yet? And what are your thoughts on a combination of this schedule realignment that now sees you open Ivy League play against your rival, and what it means for your team, especially given that you're coming off of a Sunday game, a win that we just talked about the merits of internally, and I would imagine that you're going to have to. You get kind of a benefit and a detriment, right? Like you have to worry about them being a little high on their horse, but at the same time, you're going to get a focused group when you get back on the practice field.
Yeah, no, there's a lot in there. The us playing Yale first. I mean, I think Andy and I would have preferred it to be the last game, but sometimes democracy works, and some votes count, people. So they voted, and the coaches wanted to reorganize that, and so that's what happens. And so whatever, I don't like one man, one vote, and so that's why that's happening. The second part of haven't not looked at them at all. We haven't played. I'm trying to remember if we played a common opponent yet, but I haven't watched them yet. We'll start later in the week on them. This is only the second week since we started back in early February, where we don't have 3 games in 7 days, so we get to focus on ourselves for a couple of days. We're on spring break, so we're doing a bunch of team building and social stuff with our guys besides the lifting and film and practice. And, listen, I think this is, if not the longest, one of the longest sports rivalries in college. So, I think there'll be, with both schools having huge alumni in New York City and the Westchester area, it's going to be 2 years ago was an overtime game in my first full season, and that was a pretty epic game that didn't end our way, but I think it made a statement of, after not having some competitive games in prior years, we had the lead with 90 seconds and didn't close it out. So I don't there's not a doubt in our team that we can, compete with them, and I think we've proven that for the last couple of years. So I think it's going to be, one of the great games in college lacrosse this year.
Quick one for me. I was actually just reading an article earlier this week about the history of the pranks that the Harvard student body and the Yale student body would pull on each other during football games. Are you leveraging the student body, maybe the alumni base, to pull a quick one, a fast one, whether it's in the stands, anything like that?
In the financial markets, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe we short a stock, perhaps.
I was thinking maybe you do the naked mile, Nick, and Just like if it's not going well in any moment, just kind of run onto the field. No one will recognize you.
We're going streaking. We're going up through the gymnasium and back through the quad. And really, final one from me, and this one really has nothing to do with college lacrosse, but I'm trying to work with a high school program here that I'm trying to implement the burn method, talking about picks, talking about on-ball defense. I went and watched their first game, and they opened up in zone. What should I say to that head coach?
You're the assistant coach?
No, I'm just with broadcasting. I'm not here consistently enough. I'm just kind of like a gun for hire.
You're a special consultant.
The special consultant. We're doing 34 lunch pail, double crease drill,
Yeah,
and they come out and open in zone.
I think one of the great things about being a consultant is you don't want to get too emotionally attached to your ideas. You know what I mean? Or if you're angling, for his job. No, listen, I think one of the things that coaches at a lot of levels do is talk too much, and they don't, like, you remember our practices and not a lot of meetings and talking. Like, you got to practice this for doing, film is for analysis, meetings are for development. And so, as you walk up from the parking lot, when you show up as special consultant, if 75% of the team is standing around, tell them we should start playing or doing something that involves kind of moving and coaching.
Not a 45-minute speech about my accolades.
Did you say 4.5 minutes?
45 minutes.
Oh, okay. My bad. I thought you said 4.5.
No
4.5 minutes. So, good.
Jerry Byrne, we really appreciate your time on the Tailgate podcast. Congrats on the win over Michigan. We look forward to watching you. What? You wanted more?
No comment on my screen name, Jules Monroe?
Yeah, I loved it. I was saving it for after you were gone.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Do you have any views on the Oscars?
What's that?
What did you think of John Cena?
I did. We were on a plane. We would come flying home. I didn't get home until 10:30 after we got back home here. So I did. What did he do?
Steve Osella's son. You want to explain?
He came out, I don't know, naked, holding the card over his private parts. It was very weird.
Was it? Was it an 8x10 or a 3x5?
It was right in the middle, and I think the stage might have been a little cold. So.
Okay. Well, I think that could be some inspiration for you in New Haven next weekend, Nick.
Okay.
I love it.
Perfect. I'll be running out there with the card. You just give me the signal, and I'm out there.
Jules Monroe, thank you for joining us on the Tailgate podcast.
You're welcome. See you guys. Bye-bye.